and welcome to Odds on Premier League Match Day 3. We have the first big game of the season, Man United, Liverpool. We have 4 teams with 6 points, and we had the first defeat of Man United last week against Brighton. And of course, we have the best one, Tom Rennie, with us. Hello, Tom.
It's lovely to see you. Second week was a tough one for me. First one went really well. Second week, you know what? I got too cocky. My safe bet came in fine. Half the bets came in fine. But yeah, I just found the odds too irresistible for Wolves Villa win. And they didn't win. So let's do better this week.
Wolves didn't win the 6-2. What happened there? But you said as well you could go for Arsenal to win 2-0. On the other hand, you gave 2 options. So it's up to our smart audience to pick and to analyze the games also by themselves. Thanks everyone for watching. 𝐿𝐵𝐵𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐵𝐿 Viper, Crit. Some comments, Steve. So guys, remember, ask any question to Tom. And now let's go on with the show. I think this week is going to be tough because we have so many good games. Starting with the first one, Arsenal-Brighton. Perfect start for both of them. Arsenal 2 wins, beat Aston Villa in Villa Park, something that they couldn't do last season. They played in the front foot and they haven't conceded yet in this season. Also perfect start for Brighton in the post-De Zerbi era, beating Man United at home. João Pedro scored the winner. Last season, by the way, Arsenal won both games without conceding. Tom, I guess you also like these bets. Arsenal to win without conceding was one of your favorite bets last season.
It was last season and remains one of my favorite bets this season because how do you score a goal against this Arsenal defence? It's a really tough challenge. Look, last week, it's fair to say that Ollie Watkins, if he was sharper and fitter, would have scored 1, maybe 2, and Villa win that game. I actually think Villa played better in the game this year at home. They lost than the game last year. They won at Villa Park. So full credit to Arsenal. That was the kind of performance that I would expect to see from a team in like December, January, February, when your back's against the wall, there's loads of games and injuries and all sorts of things have happened. That wasn't a second week of the season performance from Arsenal. And I mean that with the utmost respect. To get to that level of competitiveness in week 2, really impressive. Saliba was great. Gabriel was great. Calafiori, when he came on, was really good. The goalkeeper, Raya, made at least 1 outstanding save from Watkins. And the midfield is interesting. They've signed Mikel Merino this week. I don't know if he's in the squad or not, or whether he'll play. But let's say he doesn't. I like the balance of Partey, Rice, and Ødegaard. And what I like about it is that Partey can go, Rice can sit, and vice versa. Ødegaard can kind of do what he wants. The only issue remains for Arsenal is the central striking position. Kai Havertz will score 15 goals in the Premier League this season. It's good. Saka will score 15. It's good. Gabriel Martinelli, 5 to 10. It's fine. Erling Haaland's going to score 30. And there's your problem. And Gabriel Jesus injured again this week. Probably not going to play. You know, and people will say they scored 91 goals last year and, you know, it wasn't goal scoring that was the problem. I disagree. I would say there was 3 games where the title was lost. And in those games, a goal would have changed everything. And again, it's the high standards that City have set. And currently, as it looks, even though I'm impressed by Arsenal and their brilliant defense and their solidity and their confidence and their momentum at the start of this season, it will cost them in the end. So look, they don't concede many goals. Arsenal not conceded this season. Top tip here is to go Arsenal to win 2-0. Obviously, it's going to be a bet I'm going to do 30 times this season. Their defense is so good. But I also would look here at a group bet. You can get win 2-0 at 2.38. I found this morning. A group bet of 1-0, 2-0, or 2-1 is 3. That's 2 to 1. I wouldn't discount Brighton. I think they have been good at the start of the season. But the Everton game, I think Everton are so bad. I don't want to discredit the win, but I think that was so much about the issues with Everton, the Ashley Young sending off, the lack of offensive possibility and all of that. But I have liked what I'm seeing from Brighton. I like the the way that 𝗻𝗄𝐻𝐿 and Veltman have got so far forward. I like the fact that sometimes the line is so high, as it was against Man U second half last week. It cost them, but other times it condenses the game so much. There's almost a blind panic at points with United last week, where they couldn't cope with the overwhelming pressure of Brighton players. You add that Minter has been brilliant. 𝗀𝗵𝗄𝗏 scored the winner last week. Danny Welbeck rolling back the years. Mitoma being fit. Every chance they could do some damage here, but they are going to play as they play. They are not going to change the style to go to Emirates Stadium away. I think that'll cost them, and that means Arsenal win. And you combine that with win to 0, I think you're going to make some money here.
Well, Arsenal to win, the odds are very low. Someone was putting this in his ACCA. Tyson, Arsenal to win will be in my ACCA. The odds, again, are quite low. 𝗀𝗵𝗿𝗀𝐻 also thinks that Brighton are not going to score. At the Emirates, Thomas Partey to score to get a yellow, I guess, 4.3. Harry is telling us, let's look for better odds. Brentford, Southampton, bad start of the season for Southampton, 0 goals, losing to Forest. That is not looking well for a team fighting against relegation this season. Also, they couldn't score a goal against Newcastle, playing against 10 men in the opening day. And Brentford lost to Liverpool. It could happen, and beat Crystal Palace at home. That's why they are super favorites to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, they're super favourites because they're the established Premier League club at home, and Southampton have got no pattern for us to follow yet. We're 7 or 8 games away from understanding if Southampton are any good. They can compete in this league. The signs, sorry, Saints fans, ain't good so far. I mean, in terms of Brentford, I think the Ivan Toney spectre looms large over what's happening. We don't know as we record this whether he's going to be available, whether he's gone, whether he's stayed. They've been fattening him up to sell like a prize pig at fair for some time right now, and yet they cannot get him sold. Going to Saudi suggests a person who's kind of given up on their career in a way. Going to Chelsea suggests someone who's given up on their career in a way because they don't respect their own players. So I think he thought he'd get Arsenal. I think he thought he'd get Man United, to not get either. Huge disappointment for Ivan Toney. And without him, I love Bryan Mbeumo. I love 𝐬𝐿, but they do look like they're missing that focal point. And they are. And they continue to miss that focal point with the injuries they've had pre-season, right? They don't have someone who can kind of play that central striking role. They look a bit slow as well, Brentford. I'd have my concerns about Collins, Pinnock, and 𝐼𝐻, Janelt, Norgard, Jensen. It's all very one-paced. So with beyond Wissa and Lewis Potter, no one's got any pace. I'd be a bit concerned about that moving forward. But a very good home record. They often win at home. They usually win at home, and usually there's goals at both ends as well. Southampton, I actually thought they played okay at Forest or against Forest last week, despite losing at home. I think that the team is very similar to the Championship team, and sometimes that can be a real negative. But I do think in this case, it'll be a positive because you could see a team there. If you watch Ipswich, for example, I went to see Ipswich last night. It looks like there's maybe one too many new players, or at least from the midweek Carabao Cup team, not quite settled, not quite in a rhythm. Whereas when you see, even though I would have my doubts about the quality, but Bednarek and Stevens and Walker Peters and Flynn Downs and Joe Aribo, Will Smallbone, these guys know each other. And I think that may well pay dividends in a game like this if they do what they need to do, which is just get points on the board, grind out a point, low block, 5 across the back line, not 3, make it 5. Look to counter with Brereton and Diaz. Try and make something on the counter. If you do that, there is a possibility here. But I struggle to see Alex McCarthy in goal keeping many clean sheets. Brentford often have both teams to score games. And so with that being the case, I'd back both teams to score. Take Brentford to win. You can get that around 3.25. Over 2.5 goals in the match and Brentford to win. Slightly more conservative. That's 2-1 and above, which I think is a pretty likely scoreline here. You get that for 250. I think that'll go up to around 2-1, which is 3s on your decimals by the time we get to the weekend. But go for Brentford and go for goals.
Okay, someone is saying here the draw looks good. 𝗀𝗵𝗿𝗀𝐻𝐿, interesting odds for the draw. 4, since Brentford, they are so favorite. And Mbeumo to score or assist is another option for Harry. Ian for Wissa to score or assist at any time. Some other options in the Players market. Next game, Everton, Bournemouth, bottom of the table. Everton, you said they are crap right now. 7 goals conceded, 0 goals scored against Tottenham and Brighton. At least they won in the League Cup midweek games. Bournemouth, a couple of draws. And the odds are kind of good, Tom, if you are backing Bournemouth. Somehow, if you go for Asian handicap 0 or directly for Bournemouth to win, because the odds are very balanced, as we can read in the screen.
Yeah. Well, look, I see absolutely no reason to spend my hard-earned money on betting on Everton Football Club to win a game of football. And I'm not going to do that anytime soon. So if they win a couple of games, sure, we'll have a different conversation. But right now, they have started this season worse than I can ever really remember an established side starting a Premier League season. The home game against Brighton was very poor. The performance against Tottenham last week was atrocious. They did beat Doncaster in the League Cup in midweek, scored a couple of goals. Maybe that's given them some confidence, but I'm not seeing it. I mean, they don't have enough players. They've got injuries. They've not been able to replace the people that are injured. There's no Brentford. There's no Coleman. There's no Garner. There's no Patterson. That's all a problem. They haven't got significant quality to come in to replace. And it's still Michael Keane and 𝗵𝗵𝗄, centre-half. I mean, that's Burnley's starting centre-half pairing from 8 years ago. So I'd have concerns there. Plus, Jordan Pickford was terrible last week. Going forward, Idrissa Gana, Timo Rebbenham, it's a championship midfielder at this point in their careers. The 3 behind the striker. 𝗛𝗿𝗄 can go on a run of form. So can McNeil. Not been impressed by Jack Harris. And then 𝗵𝗵𝗄 sort of just seems like he's taking that stroll down washout lane to me. And I wonder whether Beto might be worth a start here. Not that I think he's particularly good. So if you're going to bet on Everton, you bet on Everton to win without conceding. You bet on Everton to win low scoring. And you bet on Everton to score from a corner. Because if it ain't from a corner, they ain't going to score. That gives you 𝗵𝗵𝗄, Keane, 𝗵𝗵𝗄, and 1 or 2 others to score from a corner. If you fancy him. Personally, I don't. In terms of Bournemouth, I didn't go to West Ham in midweek, but by all accounts, it was a pretty whiffy game of football. But I think that against Newcastle and against Forest, you've seen some bright spots. I think Evan Nielsen, a couple of good moments against Newcastle, the man who's come in to replace Solanke up front. It'll take some time, but he looked okay. Look, I think that they are always better than the sum of their parts. There is no one in this Bournemouth team, for me, who is a Premier League starter at pretty much any other team. At a push, Kluivert. Maybe about it. So they really overperform what you'd expect. But we've seen, again, brilliantly well coached. They will be sharper. They will be quicker. They have pace in behind. And because of that, take Bournemouth to win. That would be a straight up top tip for me at 2.6. That's just under 2 to 1. I think that'll rise. I would also, to make some money, think about scorelines here. Never expect lots of goals in an Everton game unless they're getting walloped. I don't think Bournemouth will wallop them. Bournemouth an under 3.5 goals. 3.25. That's really nice. I'm taking that.
Correct score 0-0 for Albertico. Well, it's not gonna it's not going to be a thrilled game to watch. Perhaps we should spend our time somewhere else. Bournemouth to win is great. Also for Albert, Bournemouth double chance could be another option. Let's try to find better football. I'm not sure if it's going to be in the next game. Is Ipswich Fulham is the first game where Ipswich actually can get points, and because they played Liverpool, they played City. You mentioned that you were watching Ipswich closely, so perhaps you have some insights to bet against them, perhaps because Fulham, they are still very competitive. They were very close to get points from Man United, and they beat Leicester City last week.
I might need to apologise here to Donato does our graphics, because I wrote this bet before I went to see Ipswich last night lose against League 2 Wimbledon. So I was going to go for an Ipswich win, but now I'm really wobbling on that because, I mean, look, it was a League 2 team in the Carabao Cup where they made lots of changes. There were several players who played last night in Southwest London who aren't going to play at the weekend against Fulham. If we look at the 2 Ipswich games, wasn't impressed by them at all against Man City. It's Man City away, so, you know, just wipe your mouth and move on. Forget about it. There were some moments on the opening day where 𝗛𝗏 had some moments, Hutchinson had some moments, and you're like, yeah, okay, there could be something here. This is the real test. This is the big game. This is the moment where we need to see the quality of 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗀 signed from Blackburn, who scored against City last week, taking the chance when it comes. I like Jacob Greaves at centre-half, didn't play last night. So bring him in, bring him back and build the defense around him. 𝗵𝐸, who was Burnley's goalkeeper last season, they signed him. Can't understand. He's terrible. And gave away a couple of the goals last week. Though I wasn't particularly impressed by the replacement goalkeeper that I saw last night. So we'll see what they do. Kalvin Phillips played last night as well. Just really finished. It's sad to see, really, with Kalvin Phillips, but he won't get in this team. So, look, it's going to be an interesting test. I do think Ipswich can score goals. I think with 𝗛𝗏𝗏, they have a really good player. I think in 𝐷𝗲𝗏, they have a goal scorer. And I think Portman Road needs this. They need this so badly, because if they can't beat Fulham at home, they will not stay in the Premier League. They simply won't get the 34 points required if they don't win a game like this. I know it's early, but they ain't going to beat the top 6 anytime soon. In terms of Fulham, good win last week against Leicester. I think they played well against Man United on the opening day. I like the look of Smith Rowe. I think he's done well, settled well. Let's hope he stays fit. I think 𝐿𝐿𝐿 and Pereira have been a good central midfield partnership. Don't like 𝐿𝐵𝗵𝗏𝗀. Don't like 𝐬𝐿𝐴. Defense looks weak to me, and they can be got at. And I still think they look a bit undercooked, Fulham. And that's why, look, I think if Ipswich are going to do it, now is the time. This may be the only time it happens this season, but with everything on the line and 𝗵𝗏𝗏 and Diop at centre-half for Fulham, who are slow and cumbersome, and you can get at them. They're championship-quality defenders. I think the Ipswich attack can score against this pretty naff Fulham defence. And with Fulham, they're inconsistent. They're a lower mid-table team. It's a big target. Embarrassed in midweek. It's there. I think this is in the stars. Ipswich win. Take it flat out. 3.15. A double your money bet. If they don't win this, we never bet on them to win again.
Well, surprise. It would be Ipswich to win their first Premier League game. Goals. Someone are putting this on the table. Sam and Viper are going for goals in this game. It's a safe play. Viper is telling us David is going for a massive 2 in this game. Fulham to win. They were very competitive against Leicester City, but I was watching this game. I wasted some time of my life watching Fulham Leicester City, and I have to say that Leicester were so poor. Tom, next game is Leicester City Aston Villa. You've been telling me this, that Leicester City are a very poor team, and they had a very defensive approach in that game in 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗀, and they ended up losing at home. Remember, they played against Tottenham and they drew. Aston Villa overplayed by Arsenal, but they played well against West Ham. So if you are backing Unai Emery, one of my favorite managers, is 1.8 to win. Not a bad price.
Yeah, it's nice, and I think we should take it because Leicester, I mean, look, of the newly promoted teams, of the 3 that I've watched so far, they maybe have looked the best of the trio at a push. Ipswich have been bad, Southampton have been nothing, and Leicester have had a couple of good moments. But you're relying on Jamie Vardy to score goals. You know, I know he scored against Tottenham, starts again against Fulham last week and has to get taken off. There's no quality backup for him, really. Jordan Ayew has come in, long-time campaigner. He's a solid Premier League player, but is he a difference maker? In my opinion, no. You know, I wish all these guys well, but I just don't see it. And in terms of defence, I've been impressed by Christensen, who came in during their last relegation season. He looks quite good. 𝗛𝗏𝗏𝗀 and Face at centre-half, done better than maybe I expected, but they're lacking here. I think Winkston and Ndidi is uninspired. Buenanote's had some good moments. They have a team that maybe could win the championship again. They don't have a team who I think are going to get any more than 30 points. And this weekend against Aston Villa, it's a Midlands derby. I wouldn't put any stock in them. Arsenal last week were able to almost smash and grab victory against Villa. If Watkins scores the chance in the first half, it's a totally different game. I was so impressed by elements of Aston Villa, as I was on the opening weekend following the win at West Ham. I think Morgan Rogers, monster in midfield, just walloping past people. There was one run last week where he left Thomas Partey and Declan Rice on their arses on the field, right? Having driven past them and still kept the ball. So impressive. Watkins, got to get sharp now. If Watkins is not sharp, you've got to play Duran because Duran can do the same job. And in fact, his through ball last week to Jacob Ramsey, I think, was brilliant. Kind of on the turn, on the breakaway, scored the win of the previous week. Duran's in form and Watkins isn't. You make the switch and he might do it now. But defensively strong. Pau Torres is fantastic. The midfield is strong. Onana and Tielemans have played well. McGinn's a battler. I just think they've got better players. They've got a better manager, and they'll be smarting from that irritating loss last week. So take Villa up and down at the odds you mentioned to win. I think that's just about okay at 1.82. But I also like -1 here. A -1 handicap at 2-0 Villa or more. They will score goals here. They have pace, they have power, they're annoyed, and they go to a pretty average team at a push. So Villa, who can score goals from anywhere, to win with a -1 handicap.
Exactly the same bet as 𝐿𝐵RTico is telling us. Villa -1. Sam is telling us Aston Villa to win both halves. Group bet. Tom loves group bets. 1, 2, 1, 3 could be another option. The only one disagreeing here is Ivan Leicester. Double chance for him. Well, next game, Tom, Nottingham Forest, Wolves, Nuno Espíritu Santo derby. I was a bit of trivia. Tom, you know that Nuno Espíritu Santo is actually African. He was born in the African island of Sao Tome and Príncipe.
Wow, that's excellent trivia.
Yeah,
where is it? Could you locate it on a map?
Yeah, in front of the coast of Equatorial Guinea and Gabon. In the Gulf of Guinea. In Africa is a colony, or a Portuguese colony. That's why Nuno Espíritu Santo is Portuguese and a very defensive manager. But so far, he's Forest 4 points. So this is a great start. Wolves, something happened against Chelsea, 2-6. We expected them to get some points from the Blues. How do you see this game? Forest, super favorites, very low odds if you are backing Forest, because it's always risky.
Yeah, look, I mean, you make a great point on what Nuno is. He is a defensive manager. I think he's a really good mid-table Premier League manager because he's in the mold of David Moyes or Martin O'Neill or, these guys who are just like, right, let's get the point. Sam Allardyce, better football than that. But you know what I mean? He'll make sure they come out with something. If we need something, we're going to get something here. He's a very smart manager, Nuno Espírito Santo. We can argue about whether you'd pay to watch his team, but I'm not a Forest fan. I don't have to. The job is to stay up, and I think they will again this year. I like Milinkovic-Savic and Murillo as a pairing. That's a really good centre-half couple of players. Morgan Gibbs-White, again last week against Southampton, proves what a good player he is. Should be in the England squad for me. I think he's fantastic, Gibbs-White, and as he's got better and better, combative and skillful and scores and creates. Just love him. I think he's fantastic. And I think that's a real difference maker for Forest. Gives them something that maybe a Nuno team doesn't usually have. So look, really impressed by them last week, and maybe should have beaten Bournemouth the previous week. Lots to like about Forest right now in terms of grinding out results. I don't think they're going to be near the relegation scrap this year. I think there's maybe 5 teams that are definitely going to be below them. But you have to win games like this. You have to win games like this. And with Wolves last week, it's funny. I went for a Wolves win, as you know, and it finished 2-6. But if you watch the game, it was very even for 60, 70 minutes. If you look at the data, it should have finished a draw because Wolves had great chances and Chelsea just had a bit of a mad one with 𝐵𝗏𝗏𝗀 in the second half. Every shot seemed to be going in. And I'm fascinated to see how Wolves recover from that in the league. I think that defensively, obviously, they're not as good as last year. They've lost Max Kilman, who's fantastic, had 3 brilliant games at West Ham since moving there. It was Totti and I think Mascara last week. I don't think that's a good central defensive partnership. I think I'd overrated that before seeing it last week. I think in Larson, they've got someone who's struggling. Now he's come to the Premier League. 𝐿𝐭𝐴 and Hwang have looked good. But yeah, it's funny with Wolves. They look undercooked. They look to me like a team that have got financial issues. They've sold a couple of their best players and they cannot reinvest. They lose Neto and Kilman in the same summer. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not worried about them at the moment. I think they'll be okay because at least the bottom 4 are really, really bad. But if I was going to pick a 5th from bottom team, it may well be Wolverhampton Wanderers moving forward. To this game, I think there's going to be goals in it. I think that I mentioned how poor I think the Wolves' defense is. But even though I like Forest on paper, maybe it's not quite settled yet because they conceded a terrible goal against Bournemouth and maybe could have conceded a couple to a pretty poor Southampton last week. So screams draw to me. I think I'll take the draw here at over W money. I quite like it. You're looking at 3.4 this morning. It's quite nice. I'd also look at both teams to score. I think 1-1 screams it to me. Draw on both teams to score is 4.33. If you were going to go for a winner, go for Forest and look for a group bet. 1-0, 2-0, 2-1.
I was waiting for this screams draw. It's written all over this game. Guilherme, a Brazilian fan, is telling us that Wolves just signed André, and he's looking forward to seeing João Gomes and André, an interesting duo. André from Fluminense, over 2.5 goals for David. And also Guilherme is asking you about your thoughts on Jimenez rejecting Forest. We know that you used to like Jimenez before he's injured, of course.
Yeah. I don't know, really. I think with Raul Jimenez, he's one of those guys who was so good for such a long time and really impressed everybody. But he had some good moments last season at Fulham. I just don't know at this point in his career if another Premier League move to another mid-table Premier League club is the right thing for him. I maybe would see this season out of Fulham, see what I can do, and then look to make a big money contract, maybe Saudi Arabia, maybe America, try and get some money out of it because something's gone. Something has gone. He's fighting to get back to where he was. But when you take that stroll down washout lane, it's very, very difficult to turn back again. And I think that's where he is.
Next game, late kickoff on Saturday, is West Ham Man City. First win for 𝗀𝗵𝗿𝗀 under West Ham. Souček, Bowen scoring at Selhurst Park. Never easy to win in South London. Man City, you were completely right. Haaland to score a hat-trick. There you go, first hat-trick of the season. Last season, we saw 3-1 in both games. Man City beat West Ham 3-1 in London. And in Manchester, any hopes to get a point from Man City?
No, I would take the same scoreline here. 3-1 twice last season. I think 3-1 is very, very likely in this game as well. Briefly on West Ham, there's not much point talking about them this week because they're playing Man City and, Man City have taken the sport from us. But they've been good. Look, I mentioned to you last week, I was really impressed by them at points against Aston Villa. They seem like a new team. They went to Selhurst last week, and despite a couple of little moments, Eza hit the bar and the keeper made a couple of saves, you're going to get that. Palace are a good team. I think West Ham look good. I like 𝐿𝐴. I think he's been fantastic. Areola makes saves. Jarrod Bowen is scoring. Mohamed Kudus is beating 5 people on his own. 𝗀𝗵𝗿𝗀 came on. He played in midweek as well in the win over Bournemouth in the Cup and has looked good. So lots to like about West Ham. I think they're going to be in the top 6. I'm going to stand by that. I think that's a top 6 squad with a top 6 manager. And I think that there's 1 or 2 teams like Newcastle or maybe Villa with the Champions League exertions to come who can be usurped by West Ham this year. And I think they're going to be in that conversation because the squad is really, really good. If this was Tottenham and they had Paquetá, Kudus, Bowen, Füllkrug, Rodriguez, Kilman, 𝗀𝗵𝗿𝗀, it's a good squad. At the moment, Edson Alvarez just coming back from injury. Todibo, settling in slowly. Good squad, good players. And I think they're going to win a lot of games this year and have a really good season. But it's Man City, right? So let's say West Ham are at full pelt and they give City a really good first half. I wouldn't be stunned to see this 0-0 at halftime, as it was, I think, last year at London Stadium. Maybe West Ham are 1-0 up at halftime. Then Doku scored in like 10 seconds and City went on to win it. City, no real test against Ipswich last week. We knew that was happening. Haaland hat-trick last week was maybe the safest bet of the season. They're fit. They look good. They've had a week off. I just think they're going to cruise to victory. I think Haaland's in this form. I think that Kevin De Bruyne being fit. I think defensively, Gvardiol, Diaz, and 𝐿𝐴, great balance. There's no point wibbling on about how good City are. Everyone knows it. What to bet on? Well, Haaland's in form. So Haaland in form means bet on Haaland to score. Haaland scores and City win, comes in at 2. Yeah, it's not amazing. Haaland to score last and City win brings you in over W money. So I might just edge for that. But Haaland and a scoreline is one of the safest bets going right now. And in terms of City win, you mentioned 3-1 a couple of times last season. I wouldn't be amazed to see it being kind of City and under 4.5. If you go City and under 3.5, 2-1 win, 2-0 victory, that brings you in at 2.5. I quite like that. But look at City. maybe both teams to score, but Haaland scores and City win. You just can't bet on anything else right now.
Well, City and both teams to score. One is telling us, or over 2.5 goals, -1 for Ian. 𝐿𝐵𝗐𝐿 is asking you about the favorite transfer signing for West Ham in this summer.
Lots of them, I think, but so far, 𝐿𝐵𝗐𝐿. I think West Ham last season offensively were good. 𝗵𝗲𝗿𝗏 is a 15 to 20 goal a season man. Mohamed Kudus, I think we're going to see some development in him this season, but I do think he is going to become really good. He is close to being a 15 and 15. That's goals and assists, and he can do it at West Ham. 𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗏 and all that. They can score goals, but defensively, only the teams that went down conceded more. That was the problem. So a back line, which will feature eventually 𝗛𝗏𝗏, does now feature wan-Bissaka and 𝐿𝐵𝗐𝐿, who's a proper leader, good defender. I think that's going to make a big difference. So for me, 𝗐𝗐𝗏.
Well, if we are talking about transfers, Tom, what about Chelsea? We have to talk about Chelsea, the highest spending club in Europe. Once again, I heard they signed this week the 6th or 7th goalkeeper in their squad. Well, but they won at least in Wolverhampton 6-2. Palmer playing a great game. Cole Palmer, Madueke scoring a hat-trick. Also, even João Felix scored a goal. He's playing football finally, and now they are playing at home against Crystal Palace. 2 defeats in the first 2 games for Palace.
Yeah, look, what I like about Chelsea and what I've liked about Enzo Maresca so far is he's just taken no crap from anybody. He's Chelsea manager and you're not, right? That's his whole vibe. And he's gone to Raheem Sterling, get lost. And he's gone to Ben Chilwell, don't want you. And he's gone to Trevor Chalobah, but got to sell you. And he'll know that if he doesn't win 10 or 15 games, he's sacked. And if he's sacked at Chelsea, he'll never get to that top table again. As we've seen with kind of Pochettino going to the US and Graham Potter going on like a lifelong sabbatical on full pay. He's got to do well here. I don't think it's good in terms of the Chelsea business model, because if you're someone that's being courted by Chelsea now and they offer you a 7-year contract, you'd say, what about the way you've treated Sterling and Chilwell and all these guys? I'll be on a 6-year contract, but playing in the bomb squad. Like, doesn't make any sense to me. So I think that could be an issue, but Maresca don't care about that. He needs to win and win lots, and be in the top 4 by Christmas, if not better, or he's sacked. And it's a good start, right? Some good moments in those opening 2 games. And last week, it was a pretty even match. But when you've got Cole Palmer, pound for pound, the best player in the league, for what he's able to offer in goals and assists and the way he carries his team. 3 assists and that brilliant lob last week was fantastic. He's made the whole attack better, apart from Mudryk. But Mudryk goes off and Felix comes on, Neto comes on. And there's a chance this week that the front 4 could be Palmer and Madueke, who were great last week, with Felix and Neto. That's good. That's a good 4 if you can make that work. And Palmer can feed the whole group, which he can. So lots of positives there offensively. Still don't like Enzo Fernandez. I think he's bang average and doesn't belong in this league. Caicedo, another performance last week of hit and miss. I think there's issues there to solve. And defensively, Colwill, Fofana, Cucurella, Gusto. I'm not sure it works. And the goalkeepers too. Sanchez has been starting, but would I bring in someone else? Philip Kostic, I think, is number 2. Potentially, I'd bring him in, see what he's like. So, issues there. With Crystal Palace, the concern is they've sold a lot of the players who carried them to that great success back end of last season and not replaced them. Mateta, unhappy by all accounts. 𝐜𝐵𝗐𝗏 started well, but without Alex on the other side. It's Odsonne Edouard. No fear of him. Mr. Sitter last week. And defensively, they might still lose Mark Gay, who captained the side at the weekend. They sold Anderson. And again, where's the replacement? You know, there's something going on at Crystal Palace that we don't know about. There's a financial problem, it would seem, because they're not reinvesting in the squad. And so I'd have issues there. So look, this was 4 months ago. I'd say Palace win. It's not. Go Chelsea win and go goals, goals, goals. I think you're going to get that with Chelsea in every game right now. They are there to score as many goals as possible. And Palace are able, with Mateta, man in great form, and 𝐬𝐵𝗐𝗏 to score themselves. So Chelsea win and both teams to score. Really, really like that. And that comes in just under 2-1. That's 2.75 on the decimals. And also, Cole Palmer, he is beyond outstanding. Palmer to score and Chelsea to win is 2.63. Make that last goal, and it comes in around 4-5, which is quite nice. But Palmer and Chelsea is a nice, comfortable bet that I'll be taking.
Well, keep it simple. Both teams to score. One is telling us with Chelsea, we were disappointed last season so many times. Every time we thought they were going to win a couple of games in a row, then they couldn't win and they dropped points. Guillermo is asking you about Mateta, if you think he is able to play in a big team. I think you like Mateta, right?
I mean, his improvement in the last, let's say, year, might be maybe a bit more, has been outrageous. Like, I saw him play maybe 2 years ago and he had the ball control of a trampoline. Now it sucks to his foot and he finds the right ball. His first time passing is fantastic. His goal record, the types of goals, the bicycle kick he scored on Tuesday night against Norwich in the Cup. Brilliant. He's a brilliant player at this moment in time. Would I have him up front for Arsenal? No. I don't think I would. I think there's quality there. Is he better than like a Kai Havertz, right? Different sorts of players, I know, but this is the club he's got to get into. I'm not sure we have seen enough consistency from Mateta to earn that. I think the best thing he can do, sign a new contract at Palace and have 3 seasons of scoring 15 plus goals. If he proves he can do it over a long period of time, then maybe yes. But currently, not in England.
Well, Ranel is asking us, has Chelsea signed more players? Always, every week of the year, Chelsea is signing new players. I'm sure the agents are very happy when they go to West London. Next game, Tom, really tough one to bet on, in my opinion. Newcastle, Tottenham, just check the odds, absolutely balanced, very good price for the draw last season. Remember, Newcastle 4. Tottenham 0, and both teams right now with 4 points. What is your take on this one?
Maybe the toughest game of the weekend because I think all results seem possible. And it was last season's game that kind of informs what I'm going to say. But look, I think that defensively, Newcastle look poor. I think that they are clearly missing injured players. They're clearly missing a leader at the back. Kieran Trippier has kind of gone from most important player in the team to someone they can't play. There's still a long injury list of players. Sven Botman being missing, Fabian Schär being suspended. These are huge losses. And last week, Dan Burn and Emil Kraft, centre-half. That's not good enough. Lloyd Kelly was coming from Bournemouth. I'm not the biggest of fans. So defensively, there are issues. But offensively, still good. Anthony Gordon, Alexander Isak, Bruno Guimaraes, really good. Joe Linton looks a bit off form and should have been sent off last week, but I think that he will come good as the weeks go on. And there is something about playing at St. James's Park. It got them over the line against Southampton in that one, despite the fact they had 10 men for such a long time. It's a really horrible, tough place to go. There's still positivity around Newcastle, despite the lack of investment that I think many of us thought they were going to get when they were bought by the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. So we'll see how it goes. But they've retained Isak and Guimaraes, who are 2 of the best players in the league. Throw Anthony Gordon in there too. They can score against anybody. In terms of Tottenham, big win last week. But again, a little bit like Brighton beating Everton. I can't judge them on that because Everton are so bad. I don't know. I think 𝗀𝗏𝗏 and Johnson were the front 2 with Son last week, or the 2 with him. I'm not sure that's a particularly high-quality pairing. I'll be interested to see if that is the pair that go into this game. Solanke was injured last week. Will he be fit for this? At this moment, I don't know. Solanke comes in, Son moves wide, and you pick one of Odsonne, 𝗀𝗏𝗏, or Johnson. It's a better-looking group, but at the moment, I'd have concerns about that. But defensively, very good. Van de Ven and Romero, good players. They got a good balance. One will kick you and one will run past you. Bissouma played well last week, maybe his best game in a Tottenham shirt. So, look, positives around Tottenham, but my issue here is that I can't see when the pressure is on, Tottenham withstanding it. And we need to see that. If Tottenham win a game like this, I think they could have a really good season. But if you play a high line at St. James's Park, as they did last season, with Isak and Gordon in behind, you're in for a beating. It happened last year. And from what we know of 𝗀𝗏𝗏, I think they'll do it again. So take the Newcastle win. Straight up and down Newcastle win if you're going to pick a winner at 2.45. That's maybe gone up a little bit. I think there will be goals in this game. I fancy Tottenham to score 1, but I think Newcastle can outscore them. That comes in at 3.5. And I also really like this. I think there'll be late goals in this game. I think it will stretch, and I think Tottenham will keep the high line. And in behind Newcastle, such a threat. Alexander Isak, last goal scorer, is 5. I just fancy late Newcastle goals in this match. If anyone's going to get them, it's Isak. Sure, maybe Gordon, but I'll take Isak at 5, and I think we'll make some money there.
In our tips page, the consensus one, people think we are going to see both teams to score. We can check right now, 1.4, low odds. Also, our Brazilian friend Guilherme was saying corners for this game, but it doesn't pay really good. So it's a tough one, this Newcastle Tottenham. And the biggest game of the weekend is Man United Liverpool. We saw the first Man United defeat playing away. Oh, that's not a surprise. We saw it so many times. Last season, good start for Liverpool in the post-Klopp era. 2 wins, 2 clean sheets, perhaps less rock and roll. And we all remember the games last season between these two teams. Remember, Liverpool couldn't beat Man United, 2 draws in the Premier League, and the game we all remember in the FA Cup. Tom, Liverpool, they are still favorites. Perhaps it's a good idea to go for Man United here.
Oh, you're a braver man than me to bet on Man United right now. I mean, look, in the macro of things for United, I think in 6 weeks, things are going to start coming good. They've bought good players. I think that Martinez and 𝗛𝗏𝗏 will be the lead centre-half pairing, and that's going to work. Mazraoui is impressed. I think 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗀, I'm not sure if it's been officially confirmed yet as we speak, but it's happening. It's going to be done. Not though he's going to start this weekend, but he will be a replacement for Casemiro. So 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and Mainoo looks a better pairing than Casemiro and Mainoo. And look, this week, forget the false 9. 𝗀𝐧𝐧𝐸's got to start now. If he's fit and you've bought him, you start him, because the lack of physicality up front was an issue in the first half last week. And when they brought 𝗀𝐧𝐸 on for Mason Mount, changed the game. Look, they did lose it in the end, but if 𝗀𝐧𝐸 doesn't accidentally touch that ball on the line, they go 2-1 up. They've turned the game around. And I think there's positives to take there despite the loss last week. So lots of positives about Man United. I do think they will be the team that finished 4th this season. And I think Ten Hag has got a really good squad to work with now. There's a lot of talent and a lot of players are fit. There are just big decisions to make, which I think he will make, including dropping Rashford, bringing in 𝗀𝐧𝐸, starting 𝗛𝗏𝗏𝗏 and finding that midfield balance. Whether they'll do it here, I don't know. In terms of Liverpool, not a great deal of change from last season, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think Diogo Jota, I've said this before, if he could stay fit, I think he is as good as someone like Sergio Aguero was. You know, the highest compliment I can think of giving someone like Diogo Jota. I think he's got everything in his game to score all types of goals. The trouble is, he keeps having 3 to 6 month injuries. If he stays fit, big if, I think Liverpool could actually push close for the title this season, because I think he is a 25 goal a season striker if you get 38 games. Again, the if doing a lot of weight there. But I do think that Luis Diaz, Szoboszlai, Salah and Jota is a brilliant 4. I agree with Arne Slot. I think Darwin Núñez experiment needs to be consigned to history. Doesn't have the consistency to play for Liverpool. Might be a great Tottenham player. Not sure he's a Liverpool player. And the defence, you know, I've made doubts about 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, but it's still Robertson, Van Dijk, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, Alexander-Arnold, Alisson. It's a great back 5. You know, whatever way you slice it and whatever concerns you might have about them, it's a solid, settled, brilliant back 5. So 2 results here. Number 1 is that I think it screams draw. I think Liverpool, for some reason, historically, to your point, have struggled at Old Trafford. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this game end as a draw with both teams scoring 1-1, 2-2. I think 0-0 would surprise me, but you can find a group bet of all those score lines, 0-0, 1-1, 2-2. That'll come out quite nicely for you. Draw on its own is 4. Fine, take it. If you're going to pick a winner, go for Liverpool. And Mo Salah has played 2 games this season and scored in them both. So Salah to score and Liverpool win, double your money.
And Federico Chiesa, we have to add him to the mix. Good signing, I guess, if he plays like in the early days for Juve and for Fiorentina, not like recently. Let's see if we see. I think Núñez could be a perfect fit, to be honest, for Serie A, like Milan or Juve, not for the Premier League.
Screams Milan. Screams Milan.
Screams Milan. I was thinking of Milan. Probably they don't have the money to sign him yet, but screams Milan completely. Well, thanks everyone for your comments. We have to finish, unfortunately, this video, and we have to say goodbye to Tom Rennie for a couple of weeks. Just remember that the tipster competition is still going on, and we are very close to say goodbye also to the month of August. So it's a new opportunity in September. to participate and to win some money for free, actually. So you register for free and you play for free, and perhaps you win some money. We have a Portuguese guy very close to win some money. Then another Ukrainian friend, Bulgaria, Dejan. So participate. Perhaps you can put Tom's safe bet in the mix and win some money. Tom, your safe bet for this week?
Yeah, tricky this week, but I think Arsenal to win at home against Brighton, looking at what's out there, is the safest bet of the week. They look great. They look confident. They look like a team in total control at the start of this season. At home to win against Brighton, I think they win it. 1.33. Take it, throw it in your ACCA.
And the ACCA, the last week's ACCA was very controversial, very daring. There were some people saying that was too risky. But Tom is a man who takes risks in his life. That's why you support West Ham. So the ACCA of this week will be?
Yeah, last week's ACCA was too wild. It was too wild. I won the first week. I got too cocky. This week is a treble. Arsenal will win against Brighton. I'm very confident of that. Throw in go Aston Villa to win at Leicester. I think Leicester are poor and Villa look really good. And add Bournemouth to win at Everton. There's your risk. But I think Leicester and Everton will look bad. Bournemouth and Villa have looked good. 5.76. So I'm still going a little bit risky. He who dares wins.
All right, we have some other options. Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City, all to win. Sushant, 𝐿𝐵𝗐𝐻𝐵, Man City to win. Both teams to score in Wolves, Forest, Liverpool, 𝑋2. Another option, so plenty of options. You can write them in the comments. Tom's ACCA was the one that he just said. So let's enjoy another great weekend of football in England. Tom, bye-bye.